time for me to host my first ever sporting history, and Jesse's left me a good one. Adrian Blincoe, a distance runner who represented us at the 2008 Beijing Olympics. He also held the New Zealand record for the 5,000 metre for 15 years, setting it in 2008, and it was only broken last year. And he joins us now. Kia ora, Adrian.
Kia ora, Perlina. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us today. We'll get to your achievements and headline achievements soon, but how did you get into running?
Yeah, my family were keen runners, so both my dad and then my grandfather on my mother's side were both marathoners, and so I'd get dragged down to the running club, the local running club, Takapuna Athletics Club, and right from probably 6 years old, and would do the sprints down there and do the long jump, and wasn't that big a fan. I was more into team sports and playing with my mates, but it was not until they started letting us do a lap of the track or a couple of laps of the track when we were a little bit older, and school cross country and stuff.
Yeah.
I fell in love with the middle distance side of running.
When you first start running, do you know straight away, or could your parents see that, there was talent there? How much of it, I guess, is natural, and then you figure out to nurture that?
Yeah, I mean, some kids you can see that they're winning races by a mile, but some of the middle distance runners, it's cultivated a little bit later, and that was certainly the case for me. I remember one race, it was a school race, and I was probably 12 or 13 by that stage. I'm doing a little bit of running, and the course tucked down into some bushes, and then looped back at the finish, so no spectators were knowing what was going on.
Yeah.
And I popped out at the front, and my mum still to this day says, "Oh, we were so shocked when you came out of the front because we had no idea." And so certainly not from the outset was there any indication that I had much talent there.
And like you said, you're doing the school cross-country competitions and running there. So then at what point do you switch over to that pro level and pursuing it, outside of school as well?
Yeah, probably around 14 or 15 when we after that kind of race and some others like it, we realised that this was something that I loved and I was pretty good at it. So time to do a little bit more training, and whilst I probably when I was 10 or 11 believed, like most kids in New Zealand, believed that I was going to be an All Black one day. Problem was I didn't really like tackling too much, so there was a bit of a problem. But I did love running, and I loved kind of the attention, the accolades that went along with being good at running. So it was kind of a perfect fit because I was pretty good at it and I loved it. And so about 14 or 15, I kind of realised this is the sport for me.
Yeah.
I still did a couple other sports because I liked that social aspect of the team sports, but got stuck in and started training kind of 3-4 days a week.
What do you think it was about middle distance in particular that you liked?
Yeah, I think it was something that it was up to me. So whilst I loved the camaraderie of the team sports, this was something that was completely under my control, and I could see myself getting better. Like I'd train, I'd get a bit older, get stronger, running faster times, and just I think when I really started reflecting on it, it was just being able to push your body to the limits, see how much pain you can take and how fast you can go. Really push your body.
Yeah. And then going from there to, more than just doing outside of school and more than a hobby, when did you think actually, and when did your family, I suppose, think, we should be taking this pretty seriously?
Yeah, so my dad coached me all the way through to the point where I left to go to university in the US. So, I mean, he kind of a self-taught coach from his own marathon running and reading a lot of books and learning and trial and error with the training that he was giving me. But it was probably when I was 15, I went to the New Zealand Secondary Schools Cross-Country Championships, which is a massive kind of showcase event in New Zealand. It's been run for decades, and it's still really popular, big fields. And I won the senior boys title at 15 years old. I think I was the youngest ever to win that. And that allowed me to go in the New Zealand team away to Australia with some of the older boys, and part of that team was Bevan Doherty, the Olympic silver medalist in triathlon, and some other really capable runners. And it was at that point that I realised actually this is more than just something that I'm pretty good at. This is something that I really want to pursue and from a career standpoint try and get realise my potential.
Yeah. And it wasn't long before, US colleges started sniffing around and knocking on your door around 18 years old. But you actually turned them down at the start.
Yeah, initially I turned them down. I was still improving and pretty happy with my training environment in New Zealand, but knowing that at some point I would need to go further afield. My belief was I needed to go further afield to give myself the best chance of being the best that I could be. But I had a pretty good training set up, and my dad and I were collaborating on the coaching, and I was getting better. So, and I was getting some interest from some good universities, but we kind of made the call that let's wait a couple of years. You get 5 years of eligibility, so it's not like you have to go right out of high school. You can do a couple of years here and then go over and just run 3 years over there, which is what I did. And
so that offer stands for 5 years?
No. The individual universities, they'll offer you at different points. I just decided to bet on myself and decide, actually, in 2 years' time, I'm going to be running even faster, and I'll be able to kind of go to the best schools, the best of the best schools over in the US, rather than the ones that are currently just showing interest. And that's what I did, and
that's
and
a
it
pretty
paid
big
off.
Call.
Yeah.
Did it feel like that at the time? For these colleges to come knocking and you kind of turning them away. That must have been quite a big decision.
Yeah, it was. I mean, they're pretty attractive offers, right? And they're skilled recruiters. Like I did when I coached at Villanova. I'm jumping ahead here, but you are explaining, hey, here's what the school can offer. That's paying for all your academics, all your costs. Essentially, you are a professional athlete for the time that you're under their care. And some of these universities have amazing facilities and coaches, and they can sell you the world. But for me, I felt it like I just needed a couple more years to mature at home, whilst also backing myself to get an even better school in the future. And thankfully, by the time I turned 20, I was running around 4 minutes in the mile and was pretty good at cross country, and was pretty much able to pick the school that I wanted to go to, and that ended up being Villanova University.
Yeah. I mean, you've got those scouts whose job it is, isn't it, to go out and find people around the world and really sell you that dream.
Yes.
You did go to university and you studied accounting. Why was that?
Yeah, my mum was an accountant, my granddad was an accountant, and I knew that I wanted to travel. So originally I was kind of really interested in law, but I didn't think that would mix too well if I was travelling. And I knew by that stage, 18, 19, I knew that I wanted to travel and I wanted to run. And so talking to some of like the idols in the sport, like a John Walker or Dick Quacks, they worked full time while they ran as well. Right. And so that was ingrained in me that, this is not something that you can really necessarily, you can't rely on being a professional runner. Now you can. Things have changed a little bit, but back certainly in John Walker's day, he was working and running on the side, and that's kind of the belief that those guys instilled in me. So I was like, well, let's study accounting. That's pretty transferable across wherever I end up in the world, and
that's just what you do.
Yeah,
have a full-time thing on the side. And you ended up picking Villanova University, as you already said, and that's in Pennsylvania. So why did you end up picking that one?
Yeah, it's a small school, but it has a really storied history in track and field. So they've had Olympians right from at every Olympic Games since I think the 1920s. They've had a Villanova represent there, and they've had Olympic champions and world record holders. So, but it was really the coach. The coach and I, Marcus O'Sullivan. He was a 4-time Olympian himself and a world indoor record holder and world indoor champion. So just his connection, our connection, it just felt right. And I took a lot of time. I spoke to a lot of schools, and I had that 2 years, right, that I bought myself to make sure that when I got on that plane, I was 100% certain that was the school that I wanted to spend the next 3 years of my life. So I got on that plane and arrived, and it almost immediately felt like home, which is pretty cool.
Was there any kind of adjustment period moving into a US? I mean, you say you felt like home, but did you have to adjust to being part of a team in the US or even training in the US? Yeah,
so that was the biggest adjustment, but I think that's also, I think I went up a level as soon as I arrived at Villanova because of the environment that it had. So middle distance running it can be seen as quite a lonely sport. You're out there training, and often in New Zealand you're training by yourself, putting in the miles, and it is seen as an individual sport in New Zealand. But in America, it's a team sport. So I immediately arrived on campus and had a team of people, all with a sense of kind of common purpose, and I think that resonated. My background playing rugby and cricket and touch and water polo and that kind of team camaraderie that I talked about earlier. I arrived there and we're all trying to run fast, but all trying to run fast for each other and for the school. And the cross country meets are scored as a team meet. So your 5 runners and how you do across those 5 runners really matters. And also there's the relay events, which are a really big deal over in America, even for the distance runners. And yeah.
Well, while you were there, you won 2 NCAA medley relay events, one in 2002 and 2003. Quite a big deal.
Yeah, they were. I mean, when I look back on my career now, those relay races were some of my fondest memories, because you're running there for your team. So they're still my best friends. Those teammates of mine. They're spread around the country now, but one of them's in Wellington, and I see pretty regularly Nick O'Brien. So running for each other and
quite a different mindset.
Yeah, it is. And I was lucky enough to be put on the anchor leg, the last leg of those. So their job was to just get me close, and my job was to run for them and run for the school and get across the line.
Now, I want to ask about this, because how does a medley relay, how does that differ from a normal relay, or what we,
Yeah, so I mean, most people will know like a 4x100 meter relay, right? So 4 runners, 100 meters each, handing the stick across. It's the same premise, but it's just a lot longer duration. So it's over 4 kilometers on the track, and often run indoors on a 200 meter track. So there's a 1200 meter leg, a 400 meter leg, and an 800 meter leg, and then a mile leg at the end. And I was always kind of stuck on the mile, and that's the last leg of the race where it really matters.
How does it work? Because how is it fair that one person gets 400 meters but someone else has to do 1200?
Well, you form a team where you've got a really good sprinter on your team, and so we had the first year that was how we won the race. Our sprinter was just way faster than everybody else, and we got us a big lead, and I was able to hold it. So you just kind of have a range of different skill sets within that.
Yeah, so you're playing to your strengths. Yep. Everyone's playing to their strengths. And then after you won those races, you had sort of a 5-year gap. What did you do during that time?
Yeah, so I was at Villanova for 3 years, graduated in 2003, and because of how well I did, New Balance picked me up as an athlete. So that kind of whole thinking, I'm going to have to go and work as an accountant, New Balance came in and was able to support me. So I was able to focus properly on being the best runner I could be, and then that shifted from doing that at the university level to then the kind of international level, where most of the races are in Europe, and the Diamond League races and the World Champs and the Olympics become the focus rather than the NCAA stuff.
What's the Diamond League?
Yeah, so that's the World Athletics, the kind of governing body of athletics. Their marquee events, so there's about 10 or 12 of them across the world. In the calendar, there was one last week in Morocco. We had 6 Kiwis competing there, including Hamish Kerr, Zoe Hobbs, Tom Walsh. So that's just the outside of the Olympic Games and the World Champs, it's the highest level of competition in our sport.
And you raced in Belgium, where you set a personal best. What do you remember of that event? Yeah,
so that event, Heusden, it's a small town in Belgium, and it's known for having a really good distance running meet every year. And so I'd gone there. I ran there 4 times in my career, and all 4 times I ran a personal best. So it's a special track for me. And the 4th time was when I went there, and I was really in pretty good shape in 2008 and felt like I had a pretty good shot at breaking Dick Quacks's long-standing New Zealand record, and I managed to do that. So, yeah.
You said you broke your own personal record 4 times, over and over.
Yeah.
Do you know when you've crossed that line, whether you've hit your personal best?
For the most part, you do. There's clocks on the track, and that one I knew with a lap to go that I was going to have to finish really, really fast to get the record, and it was kind of touch and go, but I was feeling pretty good, so I gave it everything I could and ended up beating it by a couple of seconds.
Yeah. And then you headed to the Olympics from there.
Yeah, the Olympics were only a couple of months later, so I was in really good shape entering the Olympics, and we had a great training camp in Hong Kong ahead of the Beijing Games, and preparing for the heat because it was going to be pretty warm, and the New Zealand team was there, and some of my Australian competitors, but also colleagues, because I trained a lot with the Australian athletes. They were all there, and we had a pretty good preparation, and then we headed into the village and got ready to compete.
I imagine when New Balance picked you up and then heading into the Olympics, what is it like in those moments, because you could, on the outside, you'd go, oh, you've made it, you've arrived, do you feel that when it's happening, or do you just stay focused?
Yeah, it's the Olympics is a bit of an anomaly because a lot of the things are the same, but it's so different. So the things are the same that I'm talking about, like the competitors. So you race them on the Diamond League or the World Champs. They're the same people.
Yeah.
So the level of competition is largely the same that you've
already
faced.
seen them.
But the grandeur of the event and the fact that this is something like from the time that I was 15 and started to realise I want to pursue this sport, you'd think of nearly every day about the Olympics, and then you enter that environment, it kind of hits you. Oh, this has finally arrived.
Yeah.
And then, but you're also staying focused, so you want to try and balance acknowledge how big a deal this is, but also just go through your process and do what you need to do and do what you've practiced and trained for, because you don't want the moment to get to you.
Did all your family go over there?
Yeah, they did. So my wife and her family were over there. My family so they were coming over from America, and my family came up from New Zealand, and everybody was there supporting me and watching, and it was great.
And that record that you went in with has stood for 15 years, and it was only broken last year. What do you make of that? How do you think about that?
Yeah, so. Look, I was when I broke the record, one of the highlights for me was getting a text message from Dick Quacks, the former record holder, and he held it longer than I did. He set his in the 80s, so he had close to 30 years holding that record. I got a text from him saying, "Hey, great job, congratulations, proud of you," type thing, and that was a highlight for me. And so when last year Geordie Beamish broke my record. I did the same, and we kind of connected. And I know Geordie, I coached his brother at Villanova, and know the family, so he's a great guy, and great for him to take that mantle and I guess represent New Zealand distance running, because there is a big kind of connection and whakapapa right between kind of the current generation down to the legends of the sport.
When you do set a record, do you think about how long you might have that record for? Is that something that you consider, or do you just go, I've said it, that's enough?
Yeah, I never really thought how long would I hold it for. I was immediately thinking, okay, what can I do now to put it even further out of reach? I was still thought I could get better in my career, and I think there was probably another season, 2011, where just the races didn't quite set up in the way, but I was probably in better shape than I was in 2008, and that I could have run a bit faster, but that was kind of my mindset. It wasn't really about the record, it was just about trying to improve and get faster.
And you ended up retiring in 2012, is that correct?
Yes.
Can you talk to me about that decision to retire and maybe the year leading up to it? How do you make that decision?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a very individual decision, and some people, I'm sure, might retire a little too early, and I know many retire a little bit too late. For me, 2012 was probably the first time that I started getting an inkling that may not be improving like I had in previous years. So I had a lot of injuries in my career, and a lot of times if I didn't have quite a good year as the one previous, there was quite a clear reason for it. 2012, that wasn't really the case. I'd had a great year in 2011, and 2012, I just started getting the inkling that I might not be improving. Plus, I'd been at it for a long, long time. I was 32 at that stage. I'd been running for New Balance for 9 years, and I'd been at Villanova for 3. So that was 12 years of living the life of pretty much a professional athlete. And I started to believe that actually it's probably time, and that's when I started looking for opportunities while still running, and I was fortunate enough actually a couple of months before the Olympic Games to be offered a job at High Performance Sport New Zealand, where I still work currently. And that necessitated quite a lot of thinking and decision making, and a move from where I lived with my wife and my daughter at the time, to decide whether to move back to New Zealand, and we'd made that decision ahead of the Games. So for me, I was at peace with it.
Yeah. Is that quite emotionally a difficult thing to get your head around, to go maybe this is, time to sort of do something else?
Yeah, it was really hard, and it didn't hit me until kind of 6 months after the decision. I was trying to do both. And there were discussions with my wife and others around, like, what are you doing? Like, you said you're retiring, but you're still training 120K a week. But yeah, it is tough, and you can see why some people really struggle. I was fortunate to have set up a career after sport and studied, and had a great family support, and a wife and a daughter, and a son on the way, and so I had a lot of stability, and it was still really, really hard to walk away from something that's all I'd really known, is waking up every day thinking, what do I need to do today to get better? And that was kind of shifting mindset.
When you did, you said you were lucky enough to get a job lined up, and in some ways I imagine that would be quite a nice distraction, and at least you can move forward and look forward. Did you find yourself ever thinking back and going, oh, maybe I should have pushed, maybe I should have pushed for harder for London and London Olympics in 2012, and maybe I should have, if it hadn't been for that injury? Did you ever find yourself thinking like that?
Yes, I mean, it's the honest answer. Yes, you look back and look at not just London, but as you gather more knowledge and understanding around performance, which I'm lucky to work in that arena now with some phenomenal people at High Performance Sport New Zealand and within Athletics New Zealand and snow sports and canoe racing, the sports that I work with, phenomenal people, and you're learning stuff every day about performance, and so it's a great job. But then you're always going to reflect, I wish I'd known that when I was, wish I knew how to monitor my heart rate variability or my tiredness or my...
I mean, has the equipment and, technology and all that stuff, I imagine that's changed a lot, from when you started, and obviously even in the 15 years that you held that record. Do you marvel at all the changes that have happened since? Yeah,
some of the changes in our sport include the new shoe technology, so carbon fibre and foam shoes that interact with each other. And we're seeing massive performance jumps. But I think it's almost unfair for the current generation, because a lot of people would say, "Oh, well, it's just the shoes." It's not the shoes. Their training philosophy and understanding is far more advanced than mine was even 12, 13 years ago. The nutrition is better. Some of the sports science that's starting to be applied is at another level. So it's not just the shoe technology, it's all these other things that we're seeing now, a massive performance jump in the sport, which is pretty cool to see, but also it makes it hard to kind of compare times a little bit.
Oh, well, thank you so much for your time today, Adrian Blincoe, a distance runner who represented us at the 2008 Beijing Olympics and held the record for the 5,000 metres for 15 years.